cell phones. We'll begin with a brief statement from Coach Favors and then go to questions. We have 2 microphones in the room. If you could please raise your hand, we will bring one to you. Coach, whenever you're ready.
First of all, I would just like to thank the fans for coming out. 50,248. What an amazing turnout in support of this football team. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring home the win. That was a heck of a football team we played, and when you look at the numbers, they beat us extremely thoroughly. They haven't lost in a long time, 2017, I believe, and you can figure out why. Complete win on their part. We do feel like we have an opportunity to continue to grow as a football team, and even though as bad as it may look, I feel like that we're going to be, when it's all said and done, that we're going to be one of the teams that people are going to talk about in 2019. That's my belief. I'm allowed to have it without being tested by anyone. And is there any questions?
We're going to start with Steven. Coach, on your left.
Hey, Dino. When we talked at Maryland last week about Tommy's interception on the sideline, you pushed back on the idea that it was a forced ball. And, there are things we didn't know, and, whatever was going on with Nykeem, that's that. I'm kind of curious, the interception tonight, did you see that the same way, or is that one you kind of think he should have held on to?
I want to look at the tape on it. Obviously I was disappointed. I talked to him a little bit on the sideline. It's just something. With young quarterbacks, they're going to make mistakes, and as they make mistakes, they get better and they get better and they get better. And like anything, when you touch the oven and it's hot and you get burned, you don't touch the oven again. I was disappointed that it kind of happened in the same place in the same situation, and I talked to him about that. He is, that it hurt him deeply. It's one of those reaction things, and I didn't think I'd be up here talking about it again, but I really don't believe it's going to happen again. I really think that that's it, and we're going to grow from it.
Anything more you can share about that conversation with him? And through your years, what have you learned about how, a coach in that situation? How do you try and come across to Tommy?
I come across truthfully. I tell him the truth. We're going to grow as a team. We're going to grow at certain positions and certain things. We have to correct our mistakes. And once we correct our mistakes, we can move on. And then there's going to come to a point where we have a foundation. And once we have a foundation, we can build upon it. So it was a little disappointing, but he's still my guy.
Dan, Coach on your right.
Coach, just what you can say about assessing the offensive line at this point, 3 games, and I think there was 8 sacks in this game for over 50 yards of loss, just what you're seeing at that point.
I don't think it's all on the offensive line. I can tell you right now, there was 2 sacks on someone else, and I'm not going to say the name, and that person wasn't in the offensive line at all. So again, it's not a simple offense. It's a complex offense, and everybody has to do their part. And it only takes one guy to break down offensively for something bad to happen, and then you want to pin it on one group of individuals, and that's really not the case.
Andrew, Coach on your left.
Over here, Dino. I wanted to ask you about the 2 spots where you kick field goals in the first half, and sort of taking the points makes sense, but I guess there's some school of thought that you want to be aggressive and score touchdowns. What's your thought process when you're looking at each of those situations individually? And is this a game where you maybe want to be more aggressive or just, get those points on the board?
No, you have to, it changes every single time, and it's a mood swing type thing. The defense was playing extremely well. You're in the first half of the game. I would love to score a touchdown and make it 17-14 or something like that at halftime, and everybody's rah-rahing. But it could also be 17-0 at halftime, and everybody could be sad that no one scored points in the first half. So in the first half, my thinking was based off of who we're playing, based off the down and distances, based off of where we're at, let's take the points. Defense is playing well, and let's get the game to the second half. And I'm sure there'll be more opportunities in the second half if we need them. Okay, and in the second half came on those opportunities, and obviously they didn't come out our way. But that's usually how it works in a game like that. As long as the defense is playing well, and I thought they did play well for a long period of time. You guys say it a little louder.
Trying not to be too aggressive too early and maybe take yourself out.
Especially if you're aggressive by nature.
Nico, all the way in the back.
All the way in the back here. Coach, we noticed after you brought the guys back out of the locker room and onto the field, that's something we haven't seen before. I don't expect, obviously, you can tell us what you said, but is that part of the team building and growth that you talked about a moment ago?
Yeah, we had something happening, and it's just a happening. I thought I really don't want to talk about it in front of the cameras, but the guys were just disappointed. That's all. They were just disappointed, and they needed to be talked to, and I talked to them and brought them back out, and then that S in the middle of the field has a special meaning for us. I mean, that's home, you know. And when you go home and you have a conversation, it normally means a lot more than having it in someone else's house. So it was just a conversation that I wanted to have on the S.
Nate, coach on your left.
My eyes aren't great, but it looked like after you shook Dabo's hand, you kind of made an effort to seek out Simmons 11 after the game.
He's a really dynamite player. He's different. He really is. The guy's sitting back there at 12 yards, and you hand the ball off, and he hits the running back at 2.5. He's explosive. He's long. He's a freshman. I can't tell you how dynamic that guy is. He really is. And then I wanted to say, I shook a lot of guys' hands. There's a lot of people I know, a lot of coaches over there, but I wanted to make sure I said goodbye to Tanner and told him I was glad he didn't score another touchdown against us to make it 3 years in a row. He's a dynamic player and obviously a grad student, and he's gone. You know, it's really kind of turning into, you know, crazy as it sounds, but it's turning into a little bit of a rivalry, even though we've only won 1 out of 3. They may not think so, but yeah, I enjoy playing them, and I think our team enjoy playing them as well. Maybe not so much this year, but we're looking forward to next year.
You said you wanted to see fight in your team. What'd you see?
I think I saw a fight. You know, sometimes it depends on who you're fighting, and that's a really good football team that we just played.
Mark, coach on your right.
Coach, you kind of referred to Clemson as the model program where you'd like to be. And the last 2 matchups, you guys were right there with them. How disappointing is it that this one kind of got away, and what does it say?
Well, I really think that defensively we played well. Offensively, we didn't score enough points to really make it a game, and that's always been something that we've been able to do against them. We left a lot of meat on the bone out there. There was some balls that went through some people's hands, some decisions that you wish you had back, and when you're playing somebody that hasn't lost a bunch of games, you gotta run a clean slate. You gotta have a clean game against them. I thought the defense played good enough for us to make it a game, and I'm a little disappointed on obviously the point production, but you know, we had the ball on the 3-yard line. We ran it in there 2 times, and we got about that much. So you can't. You want to get mad and you want to say this and that, but the bottom line is that's a really good football team.
Eric, second row.
Just following up on the defense, obviously the final score doesn't exactly suggest it, but you held Travis Etienne in check. You called 2 turnovers. What did you just think of their play as a whole tonight?
I thought they played well. I thought, you know, if we would have been able to generate more offense either from them or the special teams or the offense, I think it could have been interesting. I'm not going to say we would have won, but I think it would have been interesting. But their defense is really good. We couldn't move them, and we tried to. And we tried in a lot of different sets and tried to confuse them. We couldn't get it done this year.
Time for a couple more. Steven, coach on your left.
So you've spoken pretty confidently in the last couple of weeks about the passing game and believing it will improve over time. Last year we saw the linebackers, kind of another inexperienced group, improve over the course of the year. Do you have a similar confidence with the offensive line, and how much harder is it with less experience and maybe more youth at that position?
It's no different. The same growing pains that you have with you guys. Everyone can see the growing of the quarterback. The offensive tackles are the same thing. In fact, the offensive tackles may be more difficult because you either have a transfer or you have a young freshman that's 18, 19 years of age going against a 22-year-old man. And it's a big difference between an 18-year-old guy and a 21-year-old guy are 2 different animals. And they're going against some big, strong cats in there. As we move along, and somewhere, like I said, between game 4 and 6, those guys will settle down. And then once they do, you have them for a long time. And there's some young cats out there, except for the one side. There's some young cats. We're going to have them for a while. But it's just like the quarterback. We got to let them grow up out there.
Do you think you kind of have an opportunity, maybe 2 more home games in the bye before part of the ACC play? Do you think those guys are
I don't know about an opportunity. I mean, we got people coming here that's trying to win based off of what happened today in college football. There are no guarantees. I mean, those scores are all over the place from traditional, these teams should win and they don't win. So we're just trying to hopefully have 1 more point than our next opponent so we get an opportunity to be 2-2 again.
Last 2 questions. Nico.
Coach, obviously, I know it's obvious to you, but how do you convey to the guys right now when they are disappointed that there is still so much on the table? There are 9 or 10 or whatever games left. How do you get that through to them when they are disappointed after a loss like this?
Our kids will come back and our kids will play it. But I'm just sad that we couldn't do more for the community. You know, they wanted the giant upset and all that kind of stuff, and we sure wanted to deliver for them. And the student body was fantastic, the band and the entire city support. So we're disappointed that we couldn't deliver. But our guys will be back. Our guys will be ready to go.
Final question, Coach, in the middle.
Dino, your defense looked really good today despite giving up the 41 points. There were a lot of shining bright spots. I think one of them was Lakeem Williams. He continues to be a really shining star the first couple of weeks. What have you seen from him that's made him successful as a first-year starter?
I don't do things like that. I wouldn't say that. I would say that I think the linebacker group is doing things. They're making calls and they're putting people in position. And Lakeem is one of those guys. He's a senior. We expect a lot out of him. And this is his 25% of his college career is gone. He's got 9 more games left with an opportunity for 10 or 11 or 12 if we play extremely well. So I expect him to play that way, and I expect him to continue to grow and be a leader on our defense.
Thanks very much, Coach.
Thank you.